Hello, everyone. I'm here for one of my stories. This is Lindsay Dunn, and today I'm speaking with Kim Albright, director of With Love and a Major Organ, and Anna Maguire, who is the lead of that movie. The movie is screening at Fantasia Fest 2023 and also premiered at South by Southwest, which is where I saw it. So it's been making the rounds. If you aren't familiar with Kim, she's an award-winning Canadian, British, Filipina film director who has won many awards for her short films. With Love and a Major Organ is her feature-length directorial debut. Kim, welcome to one of my stories.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. So thanks for having us.
Yep. I'm also welcoming Anna Maguire, who herself has directed many shorts and has starred in many films, one of them being one of my favorite horror movie films of all time now, Violation. I'm totally nerding out that I get to talk to her. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like as I was watching with this movie, I have to say I kept going, I know her from somewhere. But it didn't dawn on me it was Violation. I was like, oh yes, oh my gosh, she's the sister from Violation, and I love that movie. So before we talk about our main movie, With Love and a Major Organ, that we'll be discussing, I just wanted to hear, what are some of the films, being a creative in the filmmaking industry, I'd like each of you just to share what are a couple of the formative films that really inspired you?
My answer is always Jurassic Park. I fail. But that's sort of my I guess childhood inspiration, and that it's sort of this. I think it was a film that made me really, without sort of understanding it intellectually, realize what cinema could do from a very young age. And then I was very lucky that, well, I'd worked with Steven Spielberg before I saw Jurassic Park, I think, yes, on Saving Private Ryan. And I think there was something just, I know I always joke Jurassic Park is my all-time favorite film, but I think actually it's pretty much the truth also. And then when I've rewatched it over many years, I'm always like, gosh, this is such great filmmaking, such great visual storytelling. But I have so many other films. I feel like it really depends on the day that you ask what you've seen recently. But I think a film that I've seen recently, which at Cannes this year, actually, that I think was just an incredible piece of filmmaking, is a film called The Settlers. And so I would recommend everyone checking that out if you haven't already. I think it will be on Mubi, I believe. So check out The Settlers.
Awesome. Okay, I've only been to the cinema to watch a film two times. I've only done that twice, and it was both occasions I was a kid, and so maybe these were two sort of films that really influenced my taste. But I went to see The Labyrinth twice when I was 6 years old. And I went to see Karate Kid twice when I was, a couple years older. I don't know. I maybe there's something to read into that. I don't really know. But when I was a kid, those were the sort of films I was hugely inspired by and loved, and anything that kind of pulls me into this whole other fantastical world. Karate Kid's not really like that, but Labyrinth is. And The Goonies and Stand By Me, those are the films kind of I think my generation. So those are the ones that I remember standout films from when I was a kid. And now, yeah, it's totally changed now. I kind of depending on my mood and depending on what I'm working on. I remember leading up to With Love and a Major Organ, years leading up to it, I was super into Yorgos Lanthimos, and I still am. I still love all his stuff. And I remember Steve McQueen, which is so serious and so intense, but I really admired his filmmaking as well. And it changes. I just watched what's the guy that did Force Majeure, and he did
Ruben Östlund.
Yeah. And what's the movie, something of sadness?
Triangle of Sadness.
Triangle of Sadness. I was like, oh, this is amazing. So anyway, it kind of is changing by the week. But those are some of my favorites for sure.
Yeah. So I was just telling a friend about Triangle of Sadness last weekend. And in fact, Karate Kid is one of my favorite all-time movies. So that makes me really happy. And I'm hugely into Cobra Kai right now. So
Yeah.
I hope you watch that. So, okay. In my review, I called the movie a rare science fiction gem, probably because it's hopeful and also it's very relational, and it's already in my best of the year list.
Aw.
So the movie is about this world ruled by the algorithm, and that decides everything for you. And there's this app, LifeZap, and in addition, people's hearts are made of these material objects. And into this cold world is interjected the character of Anabel, who does weird things like eat lunch outside, write poetry and talk to strangers in the park. So it's a wonderful movie that I love. Let's start with Kim. So this is based on a play by Julie Lederer. How did you come across this material, and why did you want to adapt it for the screen?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. It initially started its life as a theater play written by Julia Lederer, who also wrote the script. And interestingly, so I met Julia through Anna. And so Anna and we kind of go way back. So I was living in London at the time. Like we're talking like, we probably met a good sort of like 10 years or 7, 8 years ago or so. And Anna splits her time between Canada and the UK. So we met when we were both in London, and worked on a short film together. So we kind of got to work together as well. And then when I had made the decision to move back to Canada, I had reached out to Anna, and I kind of probably shared all my anxiety with her about starting afresh in the film industry in a new country and all this. And then she said, she sort of helped me kind of find my feet a little bit and introduced me to Julia, because Anna and Julia were working on a project, a short film called It's Nothing, together at the time. And then she said, I really think you and Julia would get on, and here, why don't we just like set up a call and you can sort of feel each other out. And then, so Julia and I had met, and I learned about her play, which she was sort of in her mind too, I think sort of thought there was potential to develop into a feature. And so that's kind of how it started. Like I had read the play and kind of learned as much about it as I possibly could, and met with Julia and talked to her and talked to Anna about Julia, and we all met together. And then I think the thing that attracted me about the play and sort of thought, okay, there's material here to sort of develop it into this feature, was there's so many things, but first of all, this notion that like hearts are objects. And I love this as a concept. And I think it kind of, I'm sort of surprised, like, it's such a great idea, and felt surprised, like, why has no one thought of this before? Like, it's such an original kind of idea, and this notion that like, this object is a representation of who you are. And so I thought that was like wildly original, and you can really kind of have fun with that on screen. And the world of the film, or that I could envisage in the film, and that it's a world where like you could rip out your hearts, but it's still quite relatable. It's still kind of grounded and down to earth. Yet there's these kind of weird things that are kind of up with this world, and I kind of love that too. And I'm sort of drawn to anything where where we have to sort of, which feels kind of grounded, yet there's certain kind of things that are off kilter. And so I think a lot of my shorts kind of tap into this, and I'm still sort of drawn to other films that are like this, that like, it feels like everything's normal, but so whatever. So I love that about it too. And this sort of, this idea that like, what's it like to kind of give your heart wholeheartedly to someone. And like when we're living in such a world like dictated by technology and apps, and like we're all glued to our phones, like we're so into this kind of other world of like computers and whatnot, and how does that kind of dictate, or how does that kind of have an effect on who we are, how we connect with one another. So I love that aspect too, and what this means, like to be grounded like Anabel and be down to earth and kind of not be interested in that. And anyhow, so like, yeah, there's a ton of things I loved about it and felt there was potential to explore. Yeah, those are just a few.
Well, this
Yeah.
sort of goes nicely into the first question I wanted to ask you, Anna, which is what drew you to playing the character of
Yeah,
Annabelle?
I mean, I'm a big believer in creative community and fostering creative community. And so it was kind of a dream come true in that respect. And you know, Violation 2 comes from a space of creative community. And I think especially in Canada, there's a really big movement of independent cinema, which is what drew me to Canada in the first place. And so that there's an element about making things with people that you love that feels very, very important nowadays more than anything, which I guess probably ties in to who Anabel is on some level. That what drew me to her is that she has this, she feels very relatable. She's really trying to make the most of a situation, a world, a community that feels like at a different speed to how she moves or operates on a different level. And so I think there's this really interesting, I always find it interesting thinking about the duality in characters. And I think that she has this very interesting duality where she's hopeful and has this sense of faith in the world, but underneath there is a real deep well of sadness, and fear, I guess, as well. Fear that maybe despite her best efforts, she's not gonna be able to carve out a space for herself. And I think we can all identify with that. And so yeah, it drew me to that sort of that element, that sort of that dual space really drew me to Anabel. And we were very much, I was partly involved in the development of the process of the script. And so what was so lovely about that, and having worked all together previously in different forms, was that we really trusted each other. So we could really start to delve into the reality of these humans outside of, you know, we've got this quite sort of heightened conceptual world, but it's like, how do you ground your characters in reality, so that those two things there's a nice tension between those two things. And so I'm really drawn to sort of collective storytelling, and so it was just such a dream come true to sort of be part of that film, and to feel trusted by Kim and trusted by Julia, and then, you know, vice versa, and then being trusting of them. So
Absolutely. So I'm curious, you know, it's interesting to think about what it takes to develop a play into a film and the adaptation process. So, Kim, are there notable ways that you feel like the film adaptation is different, like quite different from the way it was portrayed on stage, and what would those be?
Yeah, it was quite different, actually. So the stage play really only has 3 characters in it. So it's Annabelle, George, and Mona. And there's quite a bit more, I'd say, of Mona in the play than there is in the film. So it's a 3-hander, first off. And it's just sort of, you know, you see Annabelle on the subway. So they meet on the subway versus the park in the film. And we have time with her at home, and then George at home. So it was very kind of insular in that respect. So in the film, we really had to sort of open it up to the wider world and think about, okay, well, what does this world look, and how does it look and feel? And what are the other people in this world like, and how do they act and look? And so yeah, we had to sort of dive into, like, it just had to grow, basically. And we also really had to think about the visuals, like, you know, it's very different, you know, having material up on stage where the characters are really sort of speaking their thoughts and speaking their actions sometimes, whereas in film, you know, it's about showing and not telling. So we really had to think about, like, okay, well, how can we, you know, visually portray this? And, you know, you can see so much, you can learn so much by just seeing an expression, and there's no words. And, you know, the camera can just do so much, just, you know, coming in for a close-up. You don't need to, you know, so we just had more tools at our fingertips to work with and play with. And so we had to, you know, development did take some time. It didn't happen overnight, but we constantly had to sort of think about, okay, well, is this scene as visual as we can possibly make it? And if not, how can we make it more visual? So, we all had to, and Anna was hugely involved in the development as well. So it was like myself, Julia, Anna, and Madeline, our producer. So we all had to put our heads together and sort of reconvene every so often and think about, okay, well, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Julia, what advice can we offer to kind of, bring this onto a screen versus kind of like, being something that's on stage but filmed. So we had to sort of kind of readapt it massively for the screen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that really comes across. It's it's very visual, very vibrant and colorful. So that's one of the things I really liked about it.
Well, thank you.
So Anna, you played this pretty unique, quirky character. And you've mentioned how much you value collaboration in bringing your characters to life. What is your working relationship like with Kim, and what unique things do you think the two of you created together to create this performance?
I was going to make a joke, but I can't even. Save me, help me. No, I'm joking. No.
Okay, I got this, Anna. I got this.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was. I think like trust is the biggest thing that you can have with a director, and I direct myself, and I have directed myself, but I also direct is what I'm trying to say. And I act in people's projects, and I feel that so often actors can watch themselves out of fear. They watch themselves, not necessarily going to watch the monitor, but they kind of it can be a way of just making sure that you stay safe, that you kind of that you're going to walk a very specific, you know what your thing is, what you're good at, and so you just kind of stay in that space. If the performance kind of is quite dead, and I think and I understand why it happens, because you can't always trust your directors, and it can be scary to feel so vulnerable as well. But I think what I really feel with Kim, and have felt with Kim from the beginning, is how much she has a very strong perspective, but she also values my point of view and my questions, and so I always feel heard, and we're always trying to achieve the same thing, like we're on the same side, rather than feeling like we're on separate sides of this kind of actor director dichotomy. And I think feeling free as an actor to trust your director has your back and is watching you, and especially when you're shooting out of sequence, and you can't always map your performance in that same way, and knowing that someone else is there who really cares about the project, who really knows what they're trying to achieve, you can trust them and go, okay, great, we've got it. We've got it at the end of the day. And it means that you're not trying to second guess yourself, and it allows you to take risks, emotional risks, which I think is what really good acting does. And I guess that's what I want to achieve as an actor, and I'm sure I don't always, but that I guess would be the ultimate goal, is to sort of be free to sort of, I guess, as Beckett says, fail again, fail better, but you only achieve that through jumping and daring, I guess.
I think one of the key things as well was that Anna was involved right from the start. So so I think the role was really written for you as well. There's an Anabel kind of back from the stage play, but then over the years, developing onto this for the screen, but it was also developed for you too.
Well, basically, yeah, don't say that.
No, but then we can lean into your strengths and your interests, and and that makes a huge difference, because like if you're behind it, or if the actor's behind it wholeheartedly, then it's just going to be so much better. So I think that was one thing that like we really, really benefited from. You were on this like since 2017. So, it grew with you in a way. It grew to all of us in a way. So that's really cool. It's not like we just stepped in like a month before shooting. It was part of it was in our blood like well before. So I think that's a huge asset.
So I've already mentioned the color at least once. That's, to me, that was an important part of the movie, and creating the emotions and just the visual mapping on the screen. So how did you come up with the decisions about the colors, what the colors would mean, and how you were going to use those? And because I feel like almost colors were a character in the movie, so I just wondered if you could talk to us about your use of
Totally.
color.
It's so much fun. I love like the visual, those scenes where like we dive into Anabel's imagination and you know, and she's sort of saying these eloquent words. It's beautiful and poetic. Like I remember right from the play, like reading the play, I'm like, oh, that's money. That's so exciting. And like we can really kind of really heighten that on screen. And so I remember like, so Vancouver itself, you know, the outdoor scenes are treated in one way and it's kind of quite grim and gray and bleak. And that's fine because that's like, that suited kind of the world, that like the overall world of the film quite well. But then, you know, the purple, so that's, you know, that's her color. And I know Julia, the writer, is like, she's in love with purple. And so I feel like,
And the
like,
purple plaid jacket was always
yeah,
like the key in the play as well. It was like a big,
yeah.
so yeah.
And so like talking with the DP Leo, when we're like, okay, now we're in her like, you know, when she starts the tape recorder and starts, dearest stranger that I know, I'm like, okay, we're out of that grim world and into her world. And it's like, let's sort of, you know, that's where we can now really have fun with like the purple, and it goes into pinks and blues and all this sort of stuff. And so that was like that, you know, it really just stemmed from purple being her color, and it just had to feel so different to like the rest of the world. And so like those are her sequences. And I remember like doing a Small House of Big Feels, and like all those rooms with Leo, I'm like, okay, each room has to have its own. You're like, this is sorry if I can say that, it's like a really fucked up kind of institution. And so, you know, you have like the joy room and you have like the meditation room, and I wanted each one to have its own kind of color palette in a way. So that was a really fun, like those are my favorite scenes where like you could just really, I knew I really wanted to kind of like, we're gonna invest the time and the resources into making this kind of venue as like unique and different as possible. And the yarn was like orange, and that was like quite specifically chosen. And so yeah, there's like key things that we felt it was like really important to like invest our time and energy into thinking about what color is most suitable, and really kind of enhancing that with like production design or lighting and cinematography.
So Anna, there's a pretty powerful scene where the kind of the moment when I knew I was in for a ride was in the poetry scene when you're recording on the tape recorder and there's paint just going everywhere, and it's a very sensual scene, and you're talking in voiceover, but it's all done through your actions and your facial expressions. Like your performance on that during that scene is done without words at that moment. So I was just curious about that scene, how it was filmed, how you got in the mood. Like, have you done stuff like that before where you had to be obviously you're a performer, but you were a performer performing inside of your performance. So I love that scene. So I wondered if you could talk to us through how you got through that.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely challenge. I think the whole film was a challenge to play that role because there's so many different versions of Anabel the whole way through, really. And this being one of them as well, this kind of I guess theatrical moment, but wanting to make it theatrical yet also intimate and not feel like it's, you know, it's for one person, it's for George. And I guess it's also for Anabel, but it's this kind of very intimate kind of performance that yeah, as you say, it's kind of enacted but solo. So I guess there's also a kind of like lack there, like a want and a lack. I mean, I did a little bit of work with a voice coach who I really trust just before the shoot, just to sort of go through some of this with her, because I really wanted to just like speak it out loud to another person and get some. So that was really useful. And I'm a big believer in sort of trying to find like different ways to sort of work on character, and especially if there's something that is a bit scary, it's better to just kind of go, hey, I need to bounce this off you, or find a way into it. So that was really useful. But I also think that, you know, the relationship that I had with Hamza, with who played George, was just so special. Like we did a chemistry read on Zoom, which obviously hard to tell on Zoom, but I think we sort of knew immediately that there was some really interesting creative chemistry there. And then when we got to rehearse, and so having that sort of rehearse, we had dance rehearsals and we rehearsed certain scenes together, and then we actually spent quite a lot of time together during the shoot, which was really lovely, and we formed such a lovely friendship, and I think there was something, it was so easy actually to work with him and to imagine falling in love with George, that I kind of was able to sort of open my heart to that and feel safe with him, in performance with him. And I think one of the unique things about the film is that we're very rarely in the same space, even though it's a love story. I think we sort of realized that when we were sort of putting it together, which we thought was quite interesting. And we're like, okay, that's quite formally interesting, because he actually has my heart. So we did a lot of work together in terms of figuring out how we how we could mirror each other in some ways. So we had this lovely intimacy that allowed us this space to feel safe, even if we weren't on set together. So I could really sort of speak that love, and I think it sort of hopefully came across.
Yeah, it was very well performed. I think that can be one of the hardest things, is how do you act in love on the screen. And you've also just introduced me to a new term, like chemistry reading. Is that what you said?
Yeah, chemistry, yeah.
Kim, what do you feel like was your biggest challenge in making this movie come to be?
Yeah. So it was my first feature. You know what? I think one of the hardest things for me in making it, at least the shoot, like I find I love post-production. I love the edit. I love it when there's time. But on set, so it was my first kind of production in Canada after having been in the UK for 17 years. So I was coming here and I hadn't worked with anyone before, apart from Anna. I hadn't worked with anyone before. So all the cast, all the crew, obviously apart from Anna, everyone was new to me. And I feel like, you can do your due diligence and do your homework and do your research and ask around about, is so-and-so good to work with, will we get on and all this, but nothing quite kind of puts you to the test until you're actually working together. So I think this was really hard. Like, it's all these navigating all these different personalities. And then we're trying to kind of, we have this common goal of making this film, but you're also trying to figure out how to best work with this person and get the best out of them. So I felt personally, it was super hard not having these prior relationships and diving in, working with God knows how many people for the very first time. That was a big challenge. Not to mention just having 17 shooting days. I don't know, I feel like that's pretty slim for a feature. And so it was constantly bang, 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 bang. But I think we managed it, but it was a real roller coaster. I was pooped. I was wasted every day, getting home, but then I was wired when getting home, and so I'd have to try and calm down and get to sleep. But adrenaline really kept me going for sure. But yeah, I'd say that was the hardest thing, just navigating these new relationships, trying to get the best out of people when you don't even know them really. And so anyhow, yeah, it's super tough.
Well, we're coming up on our last question. So in this world, hearts are made of objects. We've already talked about that. So if this world existed, what do you imagine your heart would be made of? Have you guys thought about this?
You know what, we get asked this a lot.
Oh dear.
No, but
and I never get the right answer. I've never landed on anything that I can commit to. Maybe that's my problem. I don't know.
No, I really liked your last one. I won't say it.
It's the same today. It's not the same today.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, you go first. I have to think.
Okay, just because it's sitting right in front of me, I'm going to say my heart is one of those squishy balls in a bubbly tea. Are they like tapioca balls? I don't know, but they're so, I don't know. I don't even know what that says about my heart, but imagine a bigger version of that. That's all kind of squishy and chewy and sweet, but sometimes sickly. It's that's my heart. today.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, gosh, what is my heart today? I think my heart, well, I'm in Montreal for Fantasia, and I've lived here on and off, and lived in Toronto and lived in London, and I'm having such a beautiful and emotional time here being back. I think my heart is Montreal today.
Oh,
So yeah,
Lovely.
it's like so special to have the Canadian premiere of the film here at Fantasia, and yeah, I've just been like Bixieing around and going to all my favorite haunts and feeling all the feels. So I guess that's probably quite heart related.
I'm with you. So like I grew up here and I left when I was about 24, and I haven't been back since. So, and I'm just like, this city is amazing. It truly is. It's like European and North American, and everyone's so friendly, and there's like so much going on, and it's vibrant. Anyhow, I've decided I'm moving back to Montreal.
We're all moving to Montreal. It's so
You heard it here first, everybody. Since you guys were such good sports, I'll tell you I decided my heart will be an apple fritter, because I love apple fritters, and they're sweet, but they're also kind of crunchy. You know, you get to go and you get to chew on it a little bit, you know.
Totally. That's gonna, and you get little chunks of apple in there too, which are like squidgy and cinnamony. That's a good one.
It's just very wholesome, and I think this should be like your your icebreaker question you ask everybody when you meet them, because you can get to know somebody so well by knowing, what is your heart made of? Before I work with you, like that'll be your gateway question to work with people.
Totally. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna hang on to that one forever.
Well, I just want to thank you both for joining me for this lovely conversation. With Love in a Major Organ is showing at Fantasia Fest this year. Has it already screened at the festival?
No, Saturday, tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow at 10 p.m.
Okay, wonderful. So that's 7/29, July 29th. Everybody. Is it going to more festivals after this, Kim?
It is. We have 3 lined up, but I feel like I can't say what they are until mid-August. But it's on our website. It'll be on our website.
Okay. Yeah, good point. Where would you tell people what would be the best way for people to keep up with the movie if they want to know updates?
So our Instagram page, which is withlove.andamajororgan, and our website is witloveandamajororgan.com. And that's where like all the news and stuff will be posted. I think that's the best place.
Okay.
So yeah, the festival's coming up, which is super exciting. And they're in the fall, I think. Yeah. Anyhow,
more to come, I guess. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I will post all the links in the notes for the interview, and we are going to sign off for folks. This is Lindsay for One of My Stories. Kim, Anna, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.